Hello, Lindsay. I am so excited to have you here. Hello, YouTube family. I am so excited for our call today with Lindsay. I will let you present yourself, actually. I'm going to cut my intro super short, and I'm going to let you just walk us through who you are, what you do, and what led you down this path.
Fab, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And yes, hello, everybody watching on YouTube. So I am Lindsey Hall. I'm a intimacy and empowerment coach, and I specialize in helping women going through the divorce process, but that is certainly not all I do. So I really want to help support women deepen into intimacy with themselves, with other people, really own their pleasure and their power and live a joyful life that they absolutely love. And that can happen after divorce or any other time in your life. But what has led me down this journey is, as you probably guess, my own divorce is really what kicked this all off. So I got divorced about 3 years ago. And at that time, it just felt like my world fell to pieces, and I really wasn't sure like where it had come from and what had happened. And I started working with a coach at that time, and that has just led me on this incredible journey that I honestly didn't even know that I needed, let alone where it would take me. And that has really led me to wanting to do the same for other women and help them get through and actually figure out that something like divorce is absolutely a life-changing event, but it doesn't have to be a bad life-changing event. It can actually be the start of something really, really beautiful.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can totally relate to that for sure, because definitely all the work I do also has to do with my own divorce that I went through. And now I'm remarried. So I love taking women to that aspect of the process. And I know you do a lot of work with women, kind of coming out of it. And you say, right, and I totally agree with you that whatever you do in terms of work coming out of the divorce is going to help you long term too, right, as you move forward in your love life. So I was so excited to have this conversation with you so that we could talk a bit more about it. One of the things, and maybe I'm kind of jumping the gun here because I don't want you to get too intimate in terms of the details of your divorce and whatnot. But I know one of the things I noticed on your profile that I really wanted to talk about with you was the whole idea of, dating great guys and dating great men. Because I know for myself, like I got divorced, but I got divorced from a good man. So I'm really curious to know your thoughts on that, because that's a whole other struggle in itself, right? Like a lot of women, they go through really difficult relationships and marriages and whatnot, and then that's what leads to divorce. I know for myself it came from a different place, my divorce. So I'm curious to know your thoughts on that, if that relates to your experience or your experience after your divorce.
Yeah, that is an excellent question. So yes, I remember actually really early on in our separation posting in a Facebook group full of women. It wasn't like a relationship group. It was actually just like a local group of women near me. But I remember saying, please give me your experiences of getting divorced and having love afterwards, but when it was a good relationship. Because obviously, if you come out of a horrible marriage, of course you're going to find, you're going to be like, things got better. But I wasn't in a horrible marriage. We absolutely loved each other and had, really strong foundation of relationship, but it wasn't right for both of us. And, the last few years got rocky, and there was lots of things that led to our breakdown. But ultimately, it was a good marriage in a lot of ways. And I agree, like he was a good man, still is a good man. So it didn't come from a place of like, run away from a horrible situation. But even still, I have learned so much coming out of that, so much of what I want to be different in relationships, so much of how I want to show up differently, of how I want to communicate differently, of what I'm asking for from a partner and how I'm asking for it. And, all kinds of lessons that came out, even though it was good in of itself. And like you said, I do talk about how I've only dated great men like since then. So I have had like a few, nothing super long term since then. So I'm still new-ish in my dating journey. But everybody who I've dated has been amazing. Like they are really hard to break up with as a result because I don't, I'm like, oh, but they've all taught me so much in different ways and shown me different ways of being. And I've gone, oh, that's really good. And that's really good. But even though they've all been amazing, they still haven't been the right connection for me and the right person. And so it's a case of kind of holding that standard of what I know I'm looking for now that I didn't know when I met my husband. I was only 20 when we first met, and it never crossed my mind what I was looking for in a husband. I just thought that, we had a great time out at the club together at that point, and then life kind of happened. Whereas now I'm much more clear on what it is that I want from a partner relationship. So I can look and go, even though you guys are amazing, this still isn't it. You're amazing in that way, and you will be amazing for somebody, but it's not what I need just now. So it's a continuous learning process, though.
Yeah, definitely. That is so amazing. Yeah, I'll tell people now, I had a great first husband and now I have a great ex-husband. So there you go, right? And I imagine though like I was saying, there are challenges like in different ways for those things. What are some of the struggles that you see women, regardless of whether it was a marriage with a good person, or let's just say a good man, like we're calling them, or a relationship that was a bit more of a challenge? What would be kind of the commonality or some of the main challenges that you see women go through, their struggles?
I think a big thing for women going through divorce, and quite a common struggle I see, is really feeling unsettled and shaken in who they are and what they thought to be true, and going, well, what is my truth then? Like and that's truth about themselves, like losing like who they thought they were and who are they now, or losing what they thought love was or what they thought love felt like. So just really this kind of a shaken confidence and going, I thought I knew and now I don't know anymore. And so coming back to finding their own truth of who they are. And maybe, for some women, it's like, actually, I feel like I've been lost for years. I can't, maybe they felt lost. They didn't know who they were for a long, long time. Or maybe it was post having kids, or maybe it was, well, I thought I knew who I was, and then my husband walked out and now I'm confused about it. So it can happen anywhere kind of along the way, but it's really, coming back to figuring out that truth of like, but who am I, independent of a relationship status, but like me as a person? What do I love? What makes me happy? What fills me up and lights me up? And how do I react or interact with the other people in my life? Because again, a lot of us can actually end up putting a lot of pressure on our intimate partner being like the one big person in our life, and then going, what about all these other people who are around me and who love me and who I love? And what's my relationship with them? And just kind of putting all these pieces back together and figuring out who we are as a whole being, independent of an intimate partner.
Absolutely. I love sharing the story about after my divorce. One of the moments that really struck me is that like I was driving in the car and then I was listening to the radio, and I had switched radio stations from what I was always listening to in my first marriage. And I started listening to this music, and all of a sudden I'm like this was the music I like to listen to. Like, this is like my vibe. And then I started taking out clothes I hadn't worn in a while. And like, this is how I dress. And it really like struck me because, like you say, we take on these maybe a different role or a different identity based on our relationship or our marriage. And especially for the women out there who maybe have children on top of that, then you become the mother on top of the wife and whatnot. And it's so easy, for us to lose ourselves in there. And when the marriage ends, it's like, okay, where do I start? Like, who was I? Who am I? Who do I be now? So.
Exactly. And I think it's important to point out that that's not always like, people can think of that as like, oh, you changed for your husband, or like, he didn't want you to wear that, so you didn't. But it's often not like that. It's you don't even necessarily know that you're losing those things. It's not like a conscious thing. It's like, I'm sure you didn't not listen to that radio station because he told you not to, did you? It was just it just becomes easy to do in that. And it actually takes quite a lot of strength to be able to hold your wants and desires and another person's wants and desires at the same time. And without kind of being intentional about that, it's easy to just let it over time kind of slip away. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So you were talking a bit earlier about how, you're still getting back into the dating scene and whatnot. I'm curious to know, what are some of the difficulties that might come up for women, or even if you have your own personal experiences to share in terms of why can it be so difficult to start dating again after divorce?
Yeah, I think so. I took about 2 years between my divorce and before I was ready to start dating again. And in that time, I did a lot of work myself. Like I said, that's when I started working with a coach. And I really was going in for the first time, really, of like all of my stuff. And then I was like, all right, I've done a lot of this healing work. I've done a lot of discovery work. Like, I'm ready. Let's go out there and date. But then you get out there and date, and it's like all that stuff you did was almost in like a classroom setting or a lab setting, like, you're like, I'm taking notes and I can do it this way. And now I'm in the real world, and oh my God, is it different? And suddenly when you start dating and you bring another person into your world, it's like those wounds are getting triggered again. The things that you thought you dealt with actually get brought up and in a different way. And things that you thought, like, for me, I thought that I had really seen kind of what my part in our marriage breakdown was, and that I had addressed those internally. But then somebody else comes in and I'm like, oh, there's another thing. Like either, that one wasn't actually quite done, or there's another thing I didn't know about, and it just brings up a lot of stuff, and being able to address that in a healthy way and to not go, oh, quick, run away, but to go, okay, I am not, even though it might be coming up again, I'm not the same person as I was then. I have learned a lot more tools since then. But breaking those relationship patterns takes practice. It takes time, and it's not always easy. And you have to really trust in yourself to go, okay, I can do this. This is not a repeat of what went on before. I am a whole new person, because we always are. Every day, all the time, we are learning. But to really trust in that and go, even though this might feel the same at the moment, I'm going to handle it differently. I can communicate about it differently. You're a different person as well. And what you're going to do is different than what my ex-partner used to do. How do we figure this out between us? Instead of when your response wants to be like, it's back to what it was before, run away. So I think that's probably one of the hardest things is really trusting yourself to change and to do that work and to be vulnerable with another human and go, we're going to do this together. It might be hard and it might hurt, but we can do this.
Yeah. And I love telling women too, to really just focus like on the tools. Like you were talking, you're a different person, you have different tools now. And I'm like, focus on the tools, not so much on the reaction all the time, right? You're focusing on, bettering your own actions and skills and behaviors and just focusing on you. And then you have to test it out, right? Like you were saying, you're going to go out there, it's going to be different reactions. It's all part of the fun, let's just say, right? So I'm fun. Yeah, the fun. Let's say it like that, eh? I'm curious if you're open to sharing a little bit maybe of your process, the process that you take. I know some of the work that you do, you kind of break it up into 3 pieces in terms of your process with women. Can you give us just maybe a high level overview of what these 3 steps, so to speak, are?
Yeah, so I have a program called the Divorcee, which is to kind of cover all of this. And I do break it into sort of like the doubting phase when you're like, I don't know if this relationship's going to, should I stay or should I go? And then there's the divorcing stage, and then there's the dating stage. And within each of those, I've got sort of, the sort of the key steps that I went through. But honestly, they all ebb and flow, and they are all related. And, when I think of the word process, I think of like a linear, like you do step 1 and then step 2 and then step 3.
Right.
And really, this is more like a toolbox where you dig in and you're like, which one do I need today? There's really no starting and ending. But some of the big things that I like to take women through are things like how to handle those big emotions, because there's a lot of big emotions that come up like all the way through a divorce process and through dating. And if like I used to run away from big emotions of any sort, really, because Brene Brown always says that you can't selectively numb your emotions. So in order for me to like not have the big, scary, hard emotions, it meant that I was kind of numbing out the really great, joyful emotions as well. So really being able to face into those emotions, and rather than running away, be like, okay, I'm here for them. I'm going to let them process. I'm going to hold them and let them move through me. So really helping women like not be so scared of the big emotions. That's a big one. Spend a lot of time on boundaries and how boundaries are so important. Again, at all stages, really, and how they are for you. And they're not about trying to control somebody else and telling somebody else what to do, but they're about protecting your peace and how to figure out what you need for your well-being and communicate that to other people and hold them when it's tricky. Because again, so many of us, myself included, have grown up as like intense people pleasers and not wanting to upset anybody else, ruffle feathers. And actually holding your boundaries does ruffle some feathers sometimes, and really understanding that that's okay and that's needed. So we do a lot of that. And another huge piece for me is bringing in pleasure as a tool and bringing in the feel goods and being able to calm your nervous system. And this is related. I mean, all of these pieces are related, which is why I said they're not a linear process, but it's related to the handling the big emotions. It's related to regulating your nervous system and finding the ways to feel good, because A, they feel good and you deserve to feel good. Like, you are worthy of pleasure and feeling good, but also they help you through all of these other big hard things that are going to be going on along the way. So those are some of the biggest pieces.
Yeah, those are great. Like, for example, boundaries, that's definitely a big one. There's a lot of confusion out there. Remembering boundaries are mainly for us, or how we act upon on things. But those are amazing. And I'm just curious if you would be open to sharing either your biggest takeaway, or what's like one key point that you'd want the women listening to this today to really remember, to take with them after this video.
I think my biggest takeaway, that is always a good question. I think it really is the fact that you deserve to be happy. And I hear from women so often who feel like they need to stay in their marriage because they've got kids in particular, and they don't want to, rip their kids' home apart. And that, it's okay. I can put up with it. It's not that bad. And I really, really want to stress that not that bad isn't that great. You deserve so much more than it's okay. And you really do truly deserve to be happy. And that the best thing for your kids and for everybody around you is a really happy you. And that, yes, going through divorce isn't going to be like you decide to walk out and suddenly you're a happy mom. It's gonna suck for a while. Basically, there's no way around that. But you absolutely can rebuild. You absolutely can create this beautiful thing, and it doesn't actually end your life. You get to create this beautiful, beautiful new chapter instead, and that is going to benefit everybody.
Oh, definitely. And it's funny because even from my perspective, and I think back on my own experience, when you were saying, it's going to get challenging first, I would say, like, for me, my relationship now is probably more challenging. And I would say mostly because it's a second marriage and we both have children. So we add extra dynamics to it, right? With the blended families and the co-parenting and all that. But, that connection you were talking about earlier is just that connection that I've been desiring forever. So actually, I'm going to throw a curveball at you, and I want to talk about connection after, but just, it's funny how, right? Like, the easy, the okay isn't necessarily always going to be the thing that's going to fulfill you the most. And I know for myself, I made that decision one day looking in that full length mirror in my bedroom. And I said, I'm going to have like the most amazing fairy tale in my life. I'm not going to leave this earth when not having the most amazing happily ever after. So I like that you brought that up too, because I do get a lot of women that come to me who are in a, should I stay? Should I go? So that I think that whole doubting pillar that you work on with women is like huge. And I just mentioned, I wanted to throw a curveball at you in terms of the connection. Can you talk a bit more about what this connection is? Because I think there's a lot of confusion out there too. Like, a lot of women come to me, they're like, is love a feeling? Is love a choice? Like, is the connection, just the lust or love? I feel like there's a lot of confusion around that, or lots of different opinions, right? That can bring you to one side of the fence or the other side of the fence. So I'm just curious, what does it mean to you, connections? What's this connection that, either you desire or you help women discover they desire or help them towards?
Yeah, that is really good, because you often see, I'm thinking of like the TJ Maxx pillows, like love is all you need. And they kind of make me cringe because I don't think love is all that you need. And love is so, so super powerful. But you can love somebody and also not be in, not have them be the right person to be in your long-term partnership. Love, there's so many kinds of ways of love, but that doesn't always mean a healthy connection. So I think for me, the idea of this, like the connection piece that kind of I'm looking for, and that I hear a lot of people want, is that willingness to be vulnerable and to go in deep and below the surface. Like, surface feels okay and surface can feel nice, but connection, true connection, is being willing to to share all the parts of you that even, they might feel a bit scary to look at. And the parts where you're like, oh, this is hard to love, but actually it's still worth loving, even if it's hard to. And sharing those parts of you, but also somebody who's going to share those parts of themselves back, and you loving all those parts too, even if they're a bit ugly and they're a bit scary. And like, the scratchy parts come out and you're like, this doesn't actually feel great, but this is who you are. And this is who I am. And I'm willing to share that. And I'm willing to do this stuff together and really dive into even the uncomfortable stuff. I think that that's really key to a strong connection, and being willing to, like you're each working on your own stuff in those parts and not trying to fix the other one.
Yes.
You're like, you know what? I'm going to hold you there while you're going through your stuff, and you're going to hold me while I'm going through my stuff, and really have that, that like soul bared wide open. And you're like, let's do this.
I love that. I love that so much. I feel that's such a great point to finish on. So I know the women watching this are falling in love with you, just like I fell in love with you. So please share with us where the women can find you online and what you have going on right now.
Absolutely. Thank you. So you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and my website are all Lindsey Hall Coaches. So at Lindsey Hall Coaches or lindseyhallcoaches.com.
I'll put in the description.
Fabulous. And so, yes, so what I've got going on is, like I mentioned earlier, I've got this program called The Divorcee, and you can buy them individually as the 3 individual stages: the doubting, the divorcing, or the dating. If you want, you can also buy all of them because, like I said, they all ebb and flow. And you can get them as like standalone. They're pre-recorded lessons you can buy on their own. Or, of course, you can do one-to-one support coaching with me as well. And we can dive in even deeper to all of the things that you've got going on. I also do one-to-one coaching that is not related to divorce. So if you just want to start diving into all of these connection and intimacy pieces, I've got various packages that you can work with for me on one-to-one coaching as well.
That's amazing. This was so much fun. I hope we get to do it again. But thank you so much for being on here today. This was fabulous.
Thank you so much for having me. I absolutely loved it.